On the morning Mary Ann Nichols, the first canonical victim of Jack the Ripper, was murdered and mutilated in a blitz attack on Bucks Row in Whitechapel, Robert Paul, the man who discovered Carman Cross alone with her body, said it was exactly 3:45 when he entered Bucks Row. In the investigation into Charles Allen Lechmere, the man who identified himself as Charles Cross at the inquest, this is a crucial timestamp because it allows us to estimate how long Lechmere was with the victim before Paul arrived. In his deposition to the Win Edwin Baxter inquest in the Working Lads Institute on the Whitechapel Road, Charles Lechmere is reported to have said he left his home at 22 Doveton Street that morning at either 3:20 according to the Star or 3:30 according to other newspaper reports to make his way to work as a carman or carter at the Broad Street Pickford's depot. The attack on Nichols did not last more than a few minutes, and none of the other witnesses in the area heard or saw anyone about. It is imperative then that we ascertain when Lechmere arrived on Bucks Row. Both Christer Holmgren and Edward Stow, both excellent researchers and friends of the Inspector Abberline channel, have timed this short journey before, both arriving at about 7 minutes, putting Charles Lechmere at the scene of the crime on the morning of the 31st of August 1888 at about either 3:27 or 3:37, that is between 18 and 8 minutes before the arrival of Paul, more than enough time to have inflicted these injuries on Polly Nichols. This then is a repeat of that walking the scene of the crime experiment. As a review of the Ripper case, it is necessary to go over this again, but rather than repeating this walkthrough step for step with Holmgren and Stow, I have decided to take the slightly longer route, passing through Headlam Street, Collingwood Street and Merceron Street to Brady Street. As both Holmgren and Stow have correctly observed, the streets have been slightly altered since the 1880s, and so Lechmere's most direct route is no longer possible. By taking a slightly longer route than Holmgren and Stow, I am attempting to give Lechmere the benefit of the doubt. In the event that anyone suggests the previous walkthroughs were too short, a cursory look at the map, however, is enough to demonstrate both routes are much of a muchness, with only perhaps a few seconds of a difference. In walking from Doveton Street to the Durward Street entrance to the Whitechapel Underground Station, the location of Nichols' murder at what was then Brown's stable yard on Bucks Row, I made a conscious effort not to hurry. Still, aware that Lechmere said he was behind time for work on the morning in question, I paced myself as though I were making my own way to work. What one might describe as a purposeful walk. An interesting aside to this little piece of practical Ripperology, and something someone who has never visited Whitechapel may not be entirely aware of, is the pokiness of the area. Ripper territory, or Murderland as the Victorians called it, is not at all a large area. Leaving Liverpool Street Station, where the Broad Street Pickford's depot once was, for example, it is only a short walk, only a few minutes, to Commercial Street via the Crispin Street Night Refuge, past what was once Dorset Street, the worst street in London and the location of Miller's Court, to Christchurch Spitalfields, the Ten Bells Pub and Hanbury Street. Having spent so long poring over contemporary police files, newspaper reports, old photographs, and late 19th century ordnance survey maps, one loses sight of just how compact Whitechapel, Spitalfields and Bethnal Green are. Indeed, this may be the heart of London, the greatest city in the world in 1888. But this small area has only ever been a pocket of the East End with a very close-knit local community. Yet even with this disorientating compactness, Whitechapel is positively warrenous, and it always has been. Navigating the labyrinthine side streets, back streets, closes, alleys and passageways, one begins to think the Ripper must have been local and intimately familiar with the Byzantine urban geography in the near total darkness of that autumn of terror. 6 minutes into the walk from Doveton Street, and we have reached the corner of Brady Street and what was then Bucks Row. By his very own account, Charles Allen Lechmere came into Bucks Row at 3:37 at the latest. What the physical and medical evidence informs us is that Mary Ann Nichols was attacked and killed between 4:41 and 4:44 am, minutes, possibly even seconds before Robert Paul came onto the scene. Lechmere's account of his own movements that morning puts him at the scene of the crime at the time of the crime. He would have walked past the place where Nichols was murdered 4 minutes before the attack at the very least. This timing is not at all good for Charles Lechmere.